We are back. Sorry about that break for you guys there. We did just have a bit of a delay, but we are going to be playing out the match. It's going to be Tyler versus BloodTrail. But Tyler, I honestly, this is only a guess, but I think it might have been caused by the speed in which the previous two series happened. Tyler might not have just been quite ready and prepared to play, so I believe we've got it all sorted, but we are just going to quickly, for viewers that may be joining us now, just quickly go over Grandmasters and the format for you guys. If we can check out Grandmasters first, this is the league we're in across 3 different regions: Europe, Asia Pacific, and Americas. 48 players split across the board, and it's going to be made up of 2 seasons. Season 1, May to July, which we're in right now, week 1 of, and then within that season there is also a Masters Tour. So if you're budding and looking to compete, maybe in Grandmasters one day and to maybe have a chance at qualifying, you can qualify for these Masters Tours and go to these big events. Very large prize pool, very large cool tournament. First one being in Las Vegas in America, and then Season 2 also has 2 more within it as well. So we're going to be continuing Season 2 and the playoffs towards the end there, and then finishing out this year's league with the global finals to decide an overall winner, and that will be, you know, very similar to the World Championships of previous years of Hearthstone competition, where it'll be players from all regions, the top cut, going together to battle it out for that top spot to become the first Grandmasters global finalist. I think that's what it's going to be called. I don't know, we can check. But for now, also, let's just check out the format, and we'll have Language Hacker break down Specialist for us, as I know you love to do.
All right, with Specialist, players are going to only bring 1 class, but with that 1 class, they're able to bring 3 decks. Now, there are some limitations on what the 3 decks can have. You have your primary deck, which can have any 30 cards you want, and your secondary and tertiary deck can have at most 5 cards different from your primary deck. The first game of each match, it has to be played with the primary decks, after which players can choose if they want to remain with the primary decks or switch to their secondary or tertiary decks. Once a player wins 2 games in this best of 3, they will become the winner.
Yeah, and the big key question, I think, for all the players here week on week as they submit new lists, they can submit once a week for that weekend's play, which is versus 2 players. So they'll play 2 matches with the same set of decks. But the big question for me is how the primary, secondary, and tertiary decks are built, because we've seen a lot of the time, you know, the tertiary decks or secondary decks just aren't used. Sometimes both aren't used, right, because they're building them specifically to take down a certain class, and sometimes they're not used. And you know, again, it's probably the right way to build them is just to say, oh, if my opponent's warrior, I play this that should crush warrior. But there's also a question of maybe they can be a little bit more flexible in the future. We don't know what future expansions will bring, or even if there's, you know, nerfs or buffs to anything in the patch, that maybe you can be a little bit looser with the second and third deck to make them a bit more playable and give yourself more options.
So the thing is, I think even as the meta evolves, right now, since we know there's only 3, most recently 3, but there were only recently just Warrior and Rogue very popular. Now Mage is popping up, and we might see a few more decks. So it makes sense to make these secondary and tertiary decks like so extreme at targeting one of these other classes that you're expecting. But if in the future, if we see much more a larger variety of classes, maybe 4, 5, 6, you could become less extreme, kind of target an archetype, say, more than just a deck like Rogue.
Right, yeah, you can just say, oh, this is my anti-aggro version, you know, whether it's rogue, whether it's not, this is my anti-control, as opposed to some of these decks having very, very specific techs, mainly the anti-mage versions, I would say, right, with like specifically big game hunters and cards like that to deal with mountain giants, and then and walk the planks, the bigger minions that is pretty much just the mage deck create. But I believe the players are ready to go into the game now. So again, we do apologize for the slight delay on this match, but considering we've been going so fast so far today, it's fine that we had a little bit of a break. But I believe the players are good to go, and it is going to be, just once again to remind you, the Mage versus Rogue once again today. And we'll see if Mage can actually get a win on the board for day number 2 of Grandmasters.
Yep, we're looking at Tyler's Mage versus BloodTrail's Rogue.
And it's going to be the Cyclone version as well, so it's not going to be the one Staz actually has, right, or has played for this weekend. It is going to be a little bit different with the Cyclone, so much more close and identical, in fact, to Rivius's list we've seen over the past couple of days. And finally, we are ready. Tyler on the Mage, BloodTrail on the Rogue. There's Chef Nomi, and there's Khadgar. So like, the 2 heroes of the classes right now.
Yep.
But let's see how we go. Evil Miscreant looks pretty good to me.
All right, BloodTrail full mulligan, got a pretty decent hand back. Coin Miscreant, always a powerful play. Tyler's considering if he wants to keep this Giant. I think Arcane Intellect is almost always a keep. And I would say that it's almost always a keep. Not quite always, but almost.
Which I can learn in the caster trick of never fully committing to something.
Right, I need to write these down.
Yep.
But Arcane Intellect, you need multiple cards working together in this deck to actually make these explosive turns. So keeping Arcane Intellect so that you can refill your hand with more cards is beneficial. Tyler does opt to keep the Mountain Giant off of coin when you're on the play. It's difficult to get these Mountain Giants down because just of the size of your hand. It just costs too much. But he thinks with the Arcane Intellect he might be able to efficiently use that Giant.
Yeah, and a big difference we'll see from, say, Staz's game is there isn't the Book of Spectres, so it means no spells are going to be discarded. That's, you know, the Arcane Intellect is really the Book of Spectres in this list, along with maybe the Mana Cyclone kind of cards. But yeah, it means that there's no chance at that happening where you're in such a disadvantageous position because of that going on and discarding a card. So Tyler has his full level of resources to deal with BloodTrail's Rogue here.
Another thing to note about the lack of Book of Spectres in Tyler's deck is that BloodTrail is opting not to play the deck hand on 1 because he knows Tyler doesn't run Book of Spectres. So on turn 2, we've seen this many times, mages often just ping. They very rarely just tempo out a Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah, and there's no ooze, for example, and as you said, the Sorcerer's Apprentice and Khadgar's 2-drops are just unsafe, and Mana Cyclone would require spells, which you don't normally have available this early in the game. But BloodTrail looks like he's going off to a quick start, and that's an SI7 agent he's hovering, right?
So with the raiding party draw last turn, BloodTrail knows he can go a bit more aggressive, and this is kind of a nice play, I think, by him. Instead of just coining up Miscreant to get more resources, he can still go prep raiding party next turn, which leads into the turn for Wagglepeck if he so chooses, because he knows Tyler's not running weapon removal. But this way he gets something on the board that can start hitting Tyler in the face much more quickly.
Yeah, big difference because the Miscreant can be proc next turn anyway, versus the previous match we had where there was no actual way to combo the Miscreant left in hand.
Right.
So it forced the coin out.
Tyler, Arcane Intellect, using his mana. Piecing together some of the cards he'll need to be able to stop BloodTrail from being so aggressive.
I think Tyler's leaning there because he was afraid of a potential Van Cleef, for example. He's like, oh, prep raiding party, something Van Cleef. No.
It's funny when they just activate Miscreant, you're like, oh, good, it was just the Miscreant.
Yeah,
you know?
only probably one of the best cards in the deck, you know.
Okay, not a whole lot going on, so instead of just passing, Tyler's opting to use the magic trick here. It's possible he might go for a Cyclone turn if he's starting off with this. These are some interesting options. I'd be surprised if he leans towards Mirror Entity, but with Mirror Image, A, it buys you more time. It's more cheap spells you can use with the Cyclone. But the Ray of Frost as well can be used as removal and just delay. Opts for the Mirror Image. Paired together with the Sea Giants that he's running, spending 2 mana to make 4 minions discounts the Sea Giant by 4 for 2 mana.
It's pretty good. And also as well, we see now just the difference in style of play when you don't have a crazy opening. You just say, you know what, I'll just take a couple of spells and get a 2-2 on the board, right? It's just something that BloodTrail has to think about and consider instead of just letting BloodTrail run rampant for the first, 4 or 5 turns of the game. And
Tyler, knowing that the number of spells he used would bring his hand size up to 9, meaning that on the draw next turn, the Mountain Giant will cost 3 if he chooses to play that. So now BloodTrail has to think of how he wants to deal with this, if he wants to deal with the Cyclone at all, or just ignore it completely.
Just to note as well, BloodTrail's list does not run a sap.
Nope.
Which is a big deal in this matchup, and knowing that, Tyler could actually just go Mountain Giant and then just like double Mirror Image or something and just say, you don't get to attack this Mountain Giant, and then I can start doing funky things the turn after.
I think with BloodTrail going so wide this turn, Tyler might opt for something like a Rabble Bouncer and then get a guaranteed Giant Conjurers. The only way to deal with a Giant would be like something crazy like Double Eviscerate, but perhaps he wants to take something like that safe. BloodTrail with the raiding party last turn equips the Wagglepick and gets both Dread Corsairs out into the board, which is very aggressive. Which is good. That's how you need to play this matchup. Don't give the Mage time.
Yep. Already, if you just look at the power, if you pretend that Frost Nova just wasn't drawn, there's just so much damage on board.
14 showing.
You know, BloodTrail can just start pushing a lot and just set up lethal within a turn.
An interesting thing you can do with Khadgar, it works on anything that summons minions onto the board. It doesn't have to be Conjurer's Calling. It works with Mirror Images. Instead of 2, you summon 4. Works with Spellbender. Works with Splitting Image. Works with Death Rattles, like a High Main, for example. I'm not sure why that would be in Mage, but...
Yeah, anytime a minion is not played, but created on the board, I'd say, it does proc Khadgar.
A lot of options here from Tyler, and we kind of start to see how many decisions you can make with this deck, right? I touched on this earlier with Staz's Mage. there's only like 1 or 2 things you can do at a time. But with this deck, you can say, okay, do I need to go Giant? Can I play images with it? Do I need to freeze some stuff with Ray of Frost? There's so many like combinations of stuff you can do, and Tyler's trying to find the best one.
Right, and already you're starting to see the plan is, you know, quite rightly you said that Rebel Bouncer and then the ping to kill off one of the Corsairs looked pretty good because it just soaks a ton of damage and gives Tyler that 1 turn to really go big with these Giants.
Right. Knowing that there's no sap, this Rebel Bouncer has to take 7 damage. There is an Edwin in BloodTrail's hand. Of course, Tyler's not running Voodoo Dolls or single target removal, so an Edwin is a very big threat.
It's probably going to go in, right?
Yeah.
He can Shadow Step. If he really wants, he could Shadow Step play. Shadow Step play.
So BloodTrail knows that Tyler has the second half of Ray of Frost because Tyler used one earlier on to generate some spells with Mana Cyclone. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a Shadow Step on the Miscreant. Set up a Brotherhood. So with the Rabble Bouncer out of the way, I think I might have liked to see BloodTrail go a bit wider this turn, or at least consider doing something else after playing the Miscreant and seeing that there was a Faceless Summoner on top of the one he already has in his hand. He knows Tyler has a Ray of Frost in hand at this point, at least one, the second half of the original Twin spell. So although this Edwin is, you know, quite large and threatens to kill Tyler next turn, he should know that Tyler has to spend 1 mana this turn, 1 mana out of 6 to deal with the Edwin, and then he can spend 5 mana to develop something.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? Because although Tyler looks like he's getting demolished, he's actually not in a bad spot at all, because with these cards, with effectively 3 Ray of Frosts available, and then the Frost Nova as well, and then the Mirror Images, Tyler might never take another point of damage this game. He can go as slow as he wants.
Actually, thinking about it a bit more, it's possible BloodTrail wanted to make a big Edwin this turn, knowing that Tyler's going to turn 6 with 9 cards in hand. And if that's the case, that means Tyler can go Mountain Giant, Conjurer's Calling. So if BloodTrail's trying to disincentivize that,
that make him Ray of Frost.
Right, so that might be a reason why he went for the Edwin play instead of going a bit wider.
Okay, well, there's Deadly Poison.
Right, no way to deal with this Giant, so go upstairs.
He has 6 from hand. Outside of, you know, the 2-drop that the Faceless may or may not generate.
The Eviscerate with the deckhand. I think he's considering how many minions he wants to commit to the board, noting how much Sea Giant would cost.
Blood and plunder.
I don't think it's too bothered about Sea Giant, to be honest. At this point in the game, I think if your opponent plays Sea Giant, then it doesn't matter too much. But this is going to be the big turn here. Khadgar into the Conjurers is huge.
Oh goodness, this is just some of the raw. Oh my god! You see Tyler making a nice little
fist bumps in the air.
Fist bumps in the air. And this is what I'm talking about. I mean, this wasn't as explosive a turn as we were talking about previously. I mean, it was just, you know, Khadgar Conjure Calling. You're only playing 2 cards, but this is the kind of thing you need to build up towards.
Yeah.
And that's what Tyler's been doing.
The board state looks pretty explosive to me. And this effectively sets up lethal as well.
Yeah.
So now I wonder if Tyler, you know, how much Tyler's was considering a Ray of Frost, just to make as many minions as possible stay alive.
I think he's just trying to find a way he loses right now. With the Edwin frozen, it's going to be incredibly difficult for BloodTrail to get through these. Tyler knows that there's 3 lackeys in BloodTrail's hands, so he might be trying to figure out, okay, how he needs maybe an ethereal lackey. What could he discover? Like, how can I, you know, work around that?
He does still have to be careful though, because depending on how many are removed, if Tyler uses the Conjurer's Calling again, it could summon 2 Giants instead.
Right.
And not the taunts. So the taunts were like the best outcome. He wants to keep getting as many taunts as possible.
So BloodTrail needs to remove as much as he can. So
this is what I was meaning, right? If you use, sorry to interrupt, but if he's using Ray of Frost on a 3/3, it suddenly makes a Dagger Swing needed. At least on the surface. And a Dagger Swing is as good as an attack when you've set up lethal that turn, right?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, okay. I mean, that
needs to consider,
helps
yeah.
a bit.
I guess we kill off a 7/8. So BloodTrail using the Life Drinker this turn, setting Tyler down to 8 health. Now, we were just saying that Tyler's in a great position, but now BloodTrail has set himself up for another Eviscerate out off the top. It's lethal. Unfortunately, with the randomly generated fireball from the Mana Cyclone, Tyler has lethal, but BloodTrail was playing his outs, hoping for a top deck second Eviscerate to set up lethal against Tyler.
Yeah, I think the setup was good there. There is the consideration whether the knowledge of Ray of Frost should have stopped going that hard on just Van Cleef for BloodTrail, but Tyler getting the win there and just holding on. I think his sigh of relief there, because not only did he need those taunts to I'll say guarantee lived that turn at least.
Right.
He also needed some kind of follow-up. As we saw, he needed that fireball to finish the game that turn. And outside of that, double Eviscerate and a few other things would have actually got him, you know, it got BloodTrail the win. So it was actually a pretty close game there. And Mage finally gets a win against Rogue today. So Tyler's off to a good start, but the match is by no means over. Stay tuned. We'll be right back to continue the series.
We recently revealed Hearthstone's all-new 3-tiered esports program. Masters qualifiers are already well underway, and now we're ready to share details on the highest level of competitive play, Hearthstone Grandmasters. Are you ready to unlock all the secrets of Hearthstone Grandmasters?
Come close and listen.
Here goes. Hearthstone Grandmasters is the pinnacle of Hearthstone esports, composed of 48 of the best pro players in the entire world. Grandmasters is divided into 3 regions: Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific, with each represented by 16 pros. These pros are selected by special invitation from Blizzard Entertainment. Criteria for selection include lifetime earnings, Hearthstone competitive points earned, contributions to the Hearthstone community, and more. So who are the lucky Grandmasters? Stay tuned, because in the coming weeks we'll be revealing the inaugural Grandmaster roster region by region. In 2019, there will be 2 seasons of Hearthstone Grandmasters. Each season will feature 8 weeks of world-class competition played out in online tournaments. Grandmasters pros will earn both prize money and performance-based bonuses during the season, and they will automatically qualify to compete at all Hearthstone Masters Tour events, guaranteeing these marquee tournaments feature the fiercest competitors possible. And the best part? You won't miss a second of the action, because matches will be broadcast live on twitch.tv/playhearthstone. 5 matches will be broadcast every Friday, with 5 more every Saturday. And if that isn't enough Hearthstone action, there will be 6 matches broadcast every Sunday.
More souls!
Mark your calendars, because the first season begins on May 17th. Hearthstone Grandmasters is the pinnacle of professional Hearthstone, where the world's best pros battle it out every weekend online. Think you've got what it takes to reach the top? The path to Grandmasters starts with our Masters qualifier tournaments, so sign up today.
We're continuing Tyler versus BloodTrail here at Grandmasters, and Tyler currently leading the way on his Mage 1-0 over BloodTrail's Rogue, but it was pretty close as far as I'm concerned, Language Hacker. That Tyler pretty much needed that outcome to be able to actually even survive in that game.
I think even if he had hit 1 taunt, it would have almost been enough. If we looked at what BloodTrail ended up doing, he was only able to clear 2 Grave Horrors, so even if the other 2 Grave Horrors happened to be Giants instead, I think Tyler would have been fine.
Okay, well, let's see how the next game goes out. Both players have moved on to their secondary decks, which means Tyler is on this more, anti-aggro build of the Vex Crow, 1 Giggling Venter, and 2 acidic swamp ooze, which means the weapon A is there, and it wasn't in game number 1. Whereas BloodTrail has moved on to double hench clan thug, the sap, and 2 walk the planks, and that Chef Nomi, Ziliax, and the weapon removal has been taken out to make room for that.
Okay, we see the starting hands here. Tyler has Mountain Giant and Conjurer's Calling, but recognizes that that's not necessarily the cards that he wants against BloodTrail. With the addition of Vexcrow, this might be exactly what he's looking for. He also finds an Arcane Intellect, which is nice. BloodTrail starting off with no coin, which makes it a bit more difficult to activate stuff, but when you have Preparation, Raiding Party, and Miscreant, you get by.
Yeah, just a note as well, BloodTrail, we've seen some lists with no backstabs, but that's mainly for anti-warrior. Right. BloodTrail does have the backstabs available, so however much I do love playing Sorcerer's Apprentice on 2 and then hoping it lives, it may not be the best course of action, really, for Tyler here. So I think you can take it slow and just see what happens. And I don't know about you, Language Hacker, but I feel like there's hidden text on Evil Miscreant that says always starts in your opening hand, because I feel like we haven't cast a game that there's not been an Evil Miscreant to play on curve if required.
I mean, the Dalrun heist is going on right now. They're going to be seeping out everywhere.
Yep, they're going to be all over the show. And now another prep into Raiding Party. Just these plays are really the backbone of the deck, and Tyler is upset.
He was concerned it might have been an Edwin. Again,
okay, yeah,
it was only prep Raiding Party.
Same as last game, right?
Yeah.
It's just like prep Raiding Party, please no. And it's another reason not to play a minion, right? If it does get backstabbed, that hurts. But it also buffs an Edwin, as it's an extra playable card for BloodTrail.
The interesting thing with this version of the Conjurer Mage, when you're on the coin and you play Arcane Intellect on 3 with Giant in hand, what you can do is on turn 4 with the coin go Elemental Evocation, Mountain Giant, coin, Conjurer's Calling. The Elemental Evocation discounts the Giant by 2, but loses a card in hand, so effectively discounting the Giant by 1, making it 2 mana, which means on turn 4, if you spend 5 mana with the Giant and the coin Conj, you can make 2 big minions.
I like that play. And that's good to know, though, because the evocation's often a little bit weird to see with the Mountain Giant the first couple of times you try it. I've definitely pressed it and gone, oh no, that was wrong. You know, completely don't have the mana to do what I want to do now. And I don't see a reason for Tyler not to do that, do you? I mean,
I think that's quite possibly just the only play you can make this turn that makes a lot of sense. You can go Vexcrow, coin, some other stuff. It's not quite there. The following turn you could go Vexcrow, coin, Sorcerer's Apprentice, and then some cheap spells. But I think we want to see the Giant come out here.
Tyler looks a little bit perplexed here, you know, trying to work out some different plays, but I struggled to get past 2 massive dudes that, 1 might have taunt, but 2, it doesn't really matter at this point in the game, and it means that if the weapon's swung in, then either it bounces something that you don't want to bounce, that they don't want to bounce anyway, or, you know, it's going to deal the damage regardless. So, yeah, I mean, Tyler just taking his time considering the plays, I guess, but this looks fantastic to me.
Yep. Good to consider other options. I mean, when there's the one obvious play, you know, it doesn't hurt to go over everything else and see, is there something better I can do that might be a bit more, you know, harder to find.
And now what does BloodTrail need to do now to deal with this? Because the true fear of this play is that you know there's a second Conjurer's Calling in hand.
So you have to
it's a nightmarish scenario. So what's the plan now? What does BloodTrail have to do? Think long-term, short-term?
I'm looking at the Ethereal Lack in hand, and I'm hoping he finds perhaps a sap, a Walk the Plank, a Betrayal even.
Yeah.
I mean,
that'll get the job done pretty nice.
The secondary list that BloodTrail switched to does have 1 copy of Sack and two copies of Walk the Plank. None of those in hand right now, so it's difficult to deal with these 2 Grave Horrors. It's looking like he might have to try to punch through these the hard way, and if he doesn't clear both of them this turn, it means that Tyler can use the second part of Conjurer's Calling on whatever's left on the board to, again, make 2 minions.
Yeah, it's rough. And also, this is just a lot of resources and a lot of damage as well. Like, this is damage he can't do to Tyler's face. And look, speaking of Tyler's face, but his actual camera face, he seems impressed and happy about this play because this looks quite weak.
I'm very surprised to see... Okay, I see. This way BloodTrail is actually able to clear both minions, but I'm surprised that he discovered the Ethereal Lackey after trading in the deck hands.
Yeah, he could have just gone with that first, right? And just if it was vanished, then great. Couldn't have played it this turn, of course, but still there are other options that you could have played.
Oh my goodness, imagine if if that had been cleared, we'd be
seeing
a repeat.
This would be another 2-0?
With so many resources gone, Tyler could consider just playing out the Vexcrow with just a magic trick. He opts for the Ziliax instead, maybe waiting 1 extra turn to get some more guaranteed value with the Vexcrow
like 1 extra turn.
and the Apprentice, right?
The only time I think it would be a little bit better to do it now is if it was actually mirror image and not magic
Right,
trick.
then the Vex Crystal will
Because
protect
then
it.
it's more minions, it's a little bit more protected, a little bit safer. But Ziliax, decent play as well, because even at worst, which you'd have to say this is worst case scenario, you've gained 3 health, pulled out a backstab, and your opponent's had to, not had the most impactful turn with the mana anyway.
Very quick Vex Crow Apprentice. All right, good. Tyler slowing down considering. Is there anything else you can do?
No, go.
There is a play where you could go Sorcerer's Apprentice Khadgar, and the second half of the Conjurer's Calling becomes 2 mana with the Sorcerer's Apprentice discount, so you could make Khadgar and 4 2-drops, but I think that this is
does
probably just the way to go.
Same job but better, right? And you can hold the Conjurers, hold the Khadgar. And also this Discovered spell might be pretty cheap too. Yeah,
So
I
quick.
love doing this. It's so sick. Oh, this deck.
Master Swordsmith coming out.
Let's go try and kill it too.
Second copy of Ray of Frost. Magic Dark Frog coming in as well.
Okay.
If these 3 missiles hit face, the Dark Frog still dies. Cheaty Ankle Biter.
I believe Magic Dart Frog is actually one of Admirable's favorite cards based off his cast earlier today.
And this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like, this deck is so flexible.
And this also steps straight into a Sea Giant. You've
Right.
generated your own Sea Giant board.
All
Perfect.
of these game plans kind of synergize with each other, and it's amazing to see how this deck can perform.
And the big problem here is like, BloodTrail can vanish, right? And put it all back in hand.
Right.
Then Tyler just replays it all and says, well, what
Yeah.
what now? Like,
Right.
do you have a second vanish randomly? I don't know.
I mean,
So
this
this is a
probably
big
just has to
problem.
be vanished.
Yeah, it's too much, but now it's just, BloodTrail just buys a turn to see what he draws. Ooh, Burn on the Giggins hurts a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
He's just checking what the cards
Yeah,
do.
he's like,
Now
wait a
he's like,
second.
wait, what did I get?
So now without cheap spells in hand, he does have to consider which of these minions he wants to play onto the board.
I think triple 2-drop probably seems fine, and you probably aim towards the ones with the highest health, leave the cheaty ankle biter anyway.
Yep. I mean, the cheat ankle biter you can use as removal, right? The Battlecry does deal 1 damage. I think that's the best way to go. You can hold the Apprentice in case you draw some other spells later to work with. You can hold the ankle biter for removal, and this just creates...
He's not lost a Death Rattle minion, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you need it on board, actually.
you need
what
it
am
on
I
board,
talking about?
yeah.
Yeah. The card would actually be nuts if it was from deck. What am I talking
That
about?
would be pretty crazy.
Easy 2-mana mecha.
With BloodTrail using all of those resources early, I mean, the Mage is at 23 health right now. The game plan of the Rogue has kind of been stomped out for a bit. With Myers in hand, there's still a hope that BloodTrail can come out on top here.
The Rush addition is going to be nice to help just clear up 1 extra minion, and it does mean that this green skin is actually just still safe on board. Tyler doing the quick finger pointing counting that we've all done once or twice in our careers, of just having to just wave at the screen whilst you're counting to be able to keep track.
I think he's trying to count what he can play on board to perhaps get the Sea Giant out, or if that's just not good enough and he wants to consider something else instead. With the Rabble Bouncer pickup at 8 mana, he could play the Rabble Bouncer and Conjurer's Calling it, but that leaves the green skin up and opens him up to taking a bit of extra damage that he might not want to. From BloodTrail's perspective, in this matchup, you want to be very aggressive early, but if you lose board like what happened this game, you can't just go upstairs when your hand is exactly what this is, because you don't have enough reach. You go upstairs and then you just fall short.
Right.
So he's fighting for board, which was done nicely, and with the Myras, he might be able to find some cards that close out the game. But he is not running Nomi, so he'll have to get some pretty decent cards off of that.
I do think I guess he's not going for it. Okay. I was just honestly considering just Rabble Bouncer into the Conjurer's Calling and just say, I just want some big dudes on the board and ask if they can do anything like that. But now Tyler's instead choosing to go wider with his board and just create multiple 2-drops instead. Oh, if only he still had Ziliax.
Okay. Sets to go wide, set up for a Sea Giant next turn. Decides that having multiple smaller minions is better than having 2 large-ish minions with the Rabble Bouncer at 7 mana.
And I guess as well another nod to actually the difference in the tertiary decks. In the if he just goes wide with if he just goes deep with that 2 7-drops and the walk, the plank is there. Well, that 4 mana nullifies one of them instantly.
Right.
And maybe he's got a sap, or maybe he's got another walk the plank. And then your whole turn was just wasted. And BloodTrail can deal with them very, very efficiently. One thing as well is that Khadgar has to be dealt with, right? And yes, the dagger very cleanly kills it, but it's also 2 damage that isn't going face, and you've also got value from Khadgar that turn.
I think you just say, all right, if you have other summoning things at this point, I'm not winning this game. So he's going to say, all right, let me get rid of this final bit of life steal you have, and let's try to close out the game with Myra's.
Maybe I'm just, you know, have too many mental blocks on Khadgar, just absolutely demolishing me in games.
It's good ordering here, getting on the Rabble Bouncer, making sure the Giant can be played with the second Rabble Bouncer, trading something off before killing off the Dread Corsair, making sure that the second Rabble Bouncer also costs 4. Now I think this might seal the deal. We'll have to see what comes.
Just needs another vanish.
Yeah.
Well,
the thing is, even with the Myras, I believe both the Life Drinkers have been played. So,
I think so.
There's not that much over-the-top damage you can even find off of Myras. I mean, it is the play, so let's see what happens to pop out here. We do see a Walk the Plank. If a prep was picked up as well, we would have been able to go preparation, walk the plank, and then Edwin and maybe have a chance. For now, we have to get rid of the 8/8, make sure we don't take too much damage. And now it's back on Tyler.
Yeah, now Tyler actually running empty on spells, which is a big deal. And although the board and the play last turn was fantastic, the actual power of the minions that are left is very low after that Walk the Plank has removed the Giant. So going from 14 damage this turn to 6 is a big leap.
So Tyler just needs to load up the board. He's considering if he wants to play the Sandbind or the Vextro. If he plays Sandbind and gets a Mountain Giant, it's 1 mana too expensive. It would cost 8 mana. So he opts for playing the Vextro over that for the extra power on board.
With Fatigue kicking in, 2 Vex Crows are still going to hit for 3, so you know they might not be getting the fancy special effects off, but BloodTrail's going to be on 2 Fatigue next turn as well, which means that only a few of these minions need to hit, and BloodTrail's not even going to let it happen as Tyler takes a 2-0 victory and showing that Mage can fight back today, and it's not going to be a day full of rogue dominance at least. And again, there was some, maybe tighter turns there for Tyler. I'd say some, it wasn't really an insanely convincing win, but the Mage just showing how flexible it is. 1 minute it's playing defensive, then you can flood the board, then you can generate a couple of big minions. It's so flexible. It's why I really like the deck.
Yeah, there's a lot of decision points, and it's just it's a really fun deck to pilot, and it looks like Tyler has a great grasp on it.
Yeah, and we're going to be taking a break from the Mages for just a little bit as we go have a Rogue Mirror coming up next, so we'll let you take a break too. We'll be right back.